What's up, everyone? Michael Martin here from Yahoo Esports, and joining me today is Panda Global's Esam. How are you doing?
Welcome. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You were just in Seattle for Don't Park on the Grass. One of the things I wanted to ask you, what stood out to you the most in 2016 for Smash 4?
Okay, well, obviously the number one story in general is for Smash 4 is Zero. He started off the year really strong, winning Genesis 3,
Hmm.
and then he had his finger injury thing where like he had like something, I don't even know what it was on his finger, and they like cut it off, and so he couldn't really hold controller as well. So he was gone for like 3 months,
Mm.
and then he came back and was immediately doing worse. I mean, worse, right? He was still
Right.
getting like second and fourth and
Yeah.
fifth, but like he wasn't the clearly number one. If you beat him, you're like super a god player because
Yeah.
he started falling to Ally multiple times. He fell to Mr. R, to Buzz. I mean, like still top players,
Sure.
obviously. And then, the big shock was at CEO when he lost to Prince Ramen
Hmm.
and then Larry Lurf for ninth. So it was the first time he had ever not placed top eight
Mm.
at a Smash 4 tournament, ever, which was like a year and a half into its lifespan, which
Right.
is insane. And then obviously he had his resurgence. He didn't win Evo. He got third. He lost to Mr. E
Mm.
and Kamemushi, and now his name is Kameme. So he wasn't a repeat Evo champion,
Hmm.
I guess in this case champion because they messed up the.
Yes.
So Ally will be the only Smash 4 Evo champion. And then after Evo, he pretty much came back on top.
Hmm.
He won Shine 2016, and then Big House happened and he won. And then, just until recently, he was winning like every tournament he went to. And then Zero Saga happened. He got fourth, losing to the second biggest story, in my opinion, which is the rise of MK Leo.
Okay.
He's a 15-year-old Mexican kid
Wow.
who, for the longest time, wasn't able to compete in the US because visa issues. He wasn't able to come to Genesis. He wasn't able to come to Pound. He wasn't able to go to any of the big majors in the US until very, very recently.
Mm.
The one time we really saw him play was at Get On My Level, which was an event in Canada, which was the
Sure.
first time Zero came back. Leo got fifth there, beating Nairo, who's again like especially at that time, like
Yeah.
a no doubt top three, top four player.
Yeah.
So Leo beat Nairo like handily, as far as I remember,
Yeah.
and then he lost to Zero and Ally. And so he went to the E Games in Rio and he got third, losing to Larry Lur and
Right.
Ally. But then suddenly he gets his visa and he comes to the US and just starts beating literally everybody. Komori Kiri, who's a Japanese player,
Hmm.
Ally, who's the Canadian, who's
Hmm.
like amazing, Mr. R, DeBuzz, like he has wins on literally every single top player, especially now that he beat Zero at Zero Saga. So this 15-year-old kid who, and the thing is, he was really like egotistical, or that's what we thought is like, this kid, he beats Mr. R when Mr. R goes to Mexico and he thinks he's top three in the world. Yeah, whatever, man. And then suddenly, like, he's beating everyone. So it's like, oh, maybe he's top three in the world. Like I personally think he's the second best player in the world right now behind Zero. But it's absolutely insane how this 15-year-old kid and with a character that people think is pretty mediocre. Like people don't think Marth is like a top five character. He
Mm.
does,
Right.
and he's been proving it. And I think that's a huge story, especially going to 2017 because he has his visa now, and so he's going to be constantly competing. I guess another one could be, I guess for 2016 as a whole, the Bayonetta drama.
Hmm.
So she was released on February 3rd,
Oh, okay.
2016,
Okay.
and she was it was a very contentious topic because she was not super difficult to play
Hmm.
and her combos were pretty easy bake and really, really difficult to get out of. Not impossible, but incredibly difficult to get out of. And so, people were picking up Bayonetta and just like winning
Yeah.
tournaments or like top eighting majors. Obviously, a lot of the players were good players that now have seen success, especially post nerf, and so people now respect a lot of the Bayonetta players. But at the beginning, it was like, wow, this character's brain dead. She was banned in a few countries. I remember Spain most notably. She was banned there. There was a lot of stuff. There was so much bandwagon hate. If anyone played
Yeah.
Bayonetta, that person was terrible, and all the things that Twitch chat can say. And then she got nerfed, and people were like, oh, like including myself. I'm like, oh, you can get out of her combos easier. This character's not even going to be that good anymore. And then suddenly the Bayonetta players were like, actually, you want to see us get better results than we did when she was actually broken? Let's do that. And so now there's players like Salem who, has beat almost everybody in the world. There's players like Pinkfresh who won a saga, like the two GG sagas, beating a lot of good players such as Mr. R and Mars and things like that.
Mm.
And there's Captain Zach. Like there's a whole plethora of good Bayonetta players right now, proving that, it really is the player that does well more so than the character, at least, after some
Right.
point.
Right.
And again, especially after the nerfs.
Briefly, I wanted to talk to you about the rankings. Any, I guess, maybe some of your selections for I don't know, top 5, top 10, or maybe even your predictions of what you think the top 10 will shake out like.
Yeah, it's the difference between who I think is the best, like what I think the top 10 players are, and then where I think they're going to land on the PGR. Because
Right.
as I know like the factors. I think Leo is the second best player in the world. There
Hmm.
is no way in hell he's going to get number two because of the fact that he didn't go to CEO, Evo,
The earlier,
SmashCon, like
yeah.
things that weren't his fault, but he still didn't go to them. So one is zero
Hmm.
for sure because he's won the most events, and even though he had a rocky summer, like he really like again his rocky summer, like his worst placement was 13th.
Right.
Number 2 and 3 are going to be Ally and Nairo. I'm not exactly sure what order though,
Hmm.
because Nairo and Ally both won a super major. They both had their inconsistencies, but again, they pretty much like they'll have their random losses, but they also, for the most part, lose to only other good players.
Yeah.
I think DeBuzz would be number like 4 or 5, along with Void because Void's actually been doing really, really well. He's been really consistent. He hasn't really lost to any random players in like a lot of months. At this point, it gets a little difficult. I'm pretty sure MKLeo is going to be there. I hope he
Hmm.
is. And DeBuzz played really consistently throughout the whole year. He didn't go to a whole lot, but he also does really well at all of his events. He's just done really well throughout the whole year. So I don't think he'll be lower than like 5 or 6.
Hmm.
So then you have Mr. R. He's really consistent, but recently his results have been slipping just a little bit. He got like 17th at UGC. He got 17th at Evo. But he also got like third at SmashCon and fifth at CEO and fourth at Big House. So like there's a lot of good results for him. And Void also top aided there. But I think Void's wins and consistency have been a little bit better recently, which is why I'll put him above Mr. R. You have Leo, who, as I mentioned, just beats everybody now, but he didn't go to any of the tier 1 events in the summer, which really, really hurts him. I'm going to go with Abadongo, who's the Japanese Mewtwo player. His worst placement, I think, in the US is 9th. He's really consistent, and he only really loses to like the top of the top players, as well as Komori Kiri, who's another Japanese player. He's a Sonic main, the best player in Japan. He got 9th at Evo, I think, or like 13th. He didn't go to SmashCon, but he got third at Big House, and he's been back a few times for like some of the sagas, and he's just done really well at all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, and Anti is somewhere there. It's so hard because there are like 2 or 3 other players like in this grouping.
Yeah,
Like because I
yeah.
remember when I did my predictions a while ago, I literally had 12 people in top 10.
Nintendo has a new console coming, and I can't remember actually if there's supposed to be any like backwards compatibility with like Smash 4. You have this possibility of like, well,
Port.
do we do we get a port? I would assume the scene you'll continue to grow,
Yeah.
but you're on this dead console. Like,
Yeah.
what do you do?
It's a little different, I feel like, than the Melee scene. Because I mean, the Melee scene like legitimately was on its last leg,
Sure,
and then
and-
revival of Melee happened.
Yeah, and totally different.
Because like Brawl started phasing it out too. Like for 4 or 5 years that Brawl was out, it was bigger than Melee by like a lot. And Evo really jump-started Melee again. And so the thing is, like, Smash 4 is like riding that success a little bit, but at the same time, we are a vastly different game and a almost completely separate community.
Yeah.
Like I think there's only
Not a lot of
10 or
crossover.
15% crossover,
Yeah.
which like is less than we had for Pokken at Evo or something like that.
Yeah.
Smash 4's biggest problem is disassociating itself from Melee. The Melee community is a lot more fanatical,
Right.
and I'm not going to say if that's a good or bad thing, but so they're very like diehard, always Melee, always Melee, always Melee. And Smash 4, generally our players like to branch out a little more, whether we play Melee or other fighting games. Like you see Anti, who's again like a top 10, 15 player in Smash 4. He loves Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I will watch a bunch of different fighting games and esports. Melee players are a lot less likely to do that. Melee community is very much Melee or bust. So like the fans behind Melee are also like that because, a lot of Melee's fans are like kind of influenced by Mango, like thought just because that's how it is, right? It's not like a bad or good thing, but like Mango is like Melee Jesus. And so whatever he thinks it is thought in the community. And we don't really have that in Smash 4. We don't really have like a super figurehead. So it's just interesting. So Smash 4 has to really come together and figure out how to separate ourselves from the Melee community. And I feel like the 2GG circuit is really, really good for that because it's not a Melee circuit. It's not for Melee as well.
Yeah.
It's just for Smash 4. And so finally, there's going to be something other than the gameplay that is driving storylines. So we don't have the outside of game storylines. And I feel like the 2GG circuit will really start to do that because now we have a build up to like a Capcom Cup. Like Capcom Cup itself will generate stories. And then if something crazy happens at the circuit, like let's say a 2015 Kaoma, which I was so happy about that because I was an able player when I played 4, so that was like amazing. He's so good. But anyway, so like you don't have that type of thing in Smash
Yeah.
4, but now we kind of do. and it's really
Yeah.
nice. So hopefully we can really like break and distance ourselves from Melee, just because again, like we want to have ourselves be seen as our own little thing, obviously, right? I want it
Yeah.
to be standard FGC, Melee, and Smash 4 because there's a difference. And with the Switch coming, I mean, I honestly don't know. I'm not really a person that likes to speculate a whole lot just because it can lead to hopes being let down. But so I assume there will be a port because they were actively patching this game until 5 months ago. So it's not like
Right.
they're going to make a new one like immediately. That'd be
Yep.
dumb. So there'll probably be a port because I see no reason why not, or backwards compatibility. Hopefully, if there is a port, it would be cool to see some new stages and new characters because just the console is stronger and it's
Hmm.
not Smash for Wii U and Smash for 3DS. Maybe there can be some new characters in the future, some new stages. I don't know. I'm looking forward to Smash for really just like again, it's been growing. They're both growing at
Yeah.
like alarmingly huge rates. And the thing is, Smash 4 resonates more to casuals just because it's newer, it's
Hmm.
slower, it's not as intense, just as a game in terms of like tech skill. Smash 4, like in Melee, have like very very comparable scene sizes, but because of how much stronger the Melee legacy is, because it's been out for forever, because there's the God narrative, because of
Hmm.
all these things, Melee is very clearly the one that gets the majority of the limelight. But so that's it's the challenge of Smash 4 just inherently as a predecessor to Melee because it's
Yeah.
not like Melee, and so a lot of people in the Melee community like they don't necessarily say it sucks, but it's like it's not what I like, and so we don't get the transfer of
Hmm.
the fan bases.
Yeah.
The Smash 4 fans are entirely new, and or in this case came over from Brawl. So we have to build up an entire new fan base without developer support,
Hmm.
without a circuit until now,
Hmm.
and also like people go, "Ooh, what's this Smash thing?" And then they have to pick between the one that's already established and has all these storylines that they can follow without even going into the video game itself, or the one that's like, "I heard Zero's pretty good."
Yeah.
So which one are you going to pick? So hopefully we can make some new storylines. The circuit's obviously going to help. The gameplay itself has been evolving rapidly, and I actually love where the meta is right now.
All right, we've been going a while here, a lot longer than I expected, but I want to get one last thought from you. Let's close out with what does Esam want in 2017?
So for me personally, this is easy. Get back to where I was in 2015, or I guess the first PGR, because obviously I did not do particularly well. Like, I didn't do poorly this summer, but
Hmm.
for a top player, I did very poorly.
Hmm.
I top aided two events, which was Shine, which was a relatively not stacked event, and
Hmm.
then UGC, which was like crazy, right? Like I literally like 2 days before that, I was on a stream and I was drunk and I was answering questions, and they were like, "What do you think you're gonna do at UGC?" And I'm like, "I don't know, like 17th or 25th or something," and I got third. So I want to get back to where I was because again, as I mentioned, I'm probably going to be the low 20s
Hmm.
or very high 30s. So like 32 to like 25 on the PGR. That's going to be my guess for where I am. I want to get back to top 15, and I
Okay.
can do it
Hmm.
because I've seen my results at UGC, so I know I can still contend with the top players.
Hmm.
And then for the scene, I just want it to keep growing, and I want some of this. The Smash 4 scene decides to just like argue or be angry at each other for like literally no reason,
Hmm.
and I wish that stopped. I want to really solidify the figureheads in this community more so than just people talking on Twitter, and I'm
Hmm.
not sure exactly how to do that. I feel like I don't know. We need to make like a group of something, or I don't. It's just hard because I don't know what's happening behind the scenes because I'm not behind the scenes
Sure.
very much.
Sure.
So like I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, or like if there's a magic group of people that are talking to each other that are like determining things. But I really wish that like there was like a group of people that people in Smash 4 could go to for like questions about events. Let's say like a back room. I know there is a back room on like Smash boards, and Smash boards phased out of relevance when it got DDoSed for like an entire month or 2 months back in 2014.
Uh,
But so hopefully we can get some type of organizational like thing done just because it would be nice to do, and it would be nice to have somewhere that like answers like public concerns or like has public
yeah.
statements that's more
Hmm.
than like individual TOs making things. Like it's really scary to just not know what a tournament's going to run until the rule
Right.
sets out. But I feel
Yeah.
like it would be nice to have like an open conversation between like the community and top players and like a committee of some sort to just like regulate things so we're not scared of like just random tournaments deciding to use a different rule set. Other than that, just the gameplay to continue being really nice. Because I love watching Smash 4. It's so much fun to watch. Like I've actually stopped enjoying watching Melee as much because it's very much the same thing over and
Right.
over again at this point. Other than like very specific instances, and for Smash 4, you don't really have that except for you can assume Zero's going to win.
Mm-hmm. Esam, I appreciate you taking the time to talk, and I wish you all the best in 2017, and I hope we can catch up soon
Yeah,
next year.
likewise.
Yeah.
And I'll
All right,
see you
man.
guys next time. Oh, bye.